I never knew it would happen to me. Warnings had been coming for 3 or so weeks, but I thought, in Kenya, why should it happen? It was going to be another election. We were actually electing a president. Little did I know that my democratic right would become a curse unto my life. 30th December, the year is 2007. By midnight of that day, things just changed. I lost everything I could call my own. My name is Rosemary Kendi Matthew. I was born in the Greater Meru County and the last born of a family of 6. And so I was given a precious name, Kendi. Actually, Kendi means the cherished one. So being brought up in Meru, I was brought up with a lot of dignity of work, that is appreciating what you are able to do with your hands. So I was brought up with that confidence of knowing what men can achieve, I can too achieve. And also with that culture of working hard and being appreciated. And I believe my upbringing has actually contributed to my confidence and the fact that I would say I'm a fighter, not a negative, aggressive fighter, but a diplomatic and peaceful fighter. By 93, I got married in church. And I was a clean girl. I had preserved myself. Unfortunately, the marriage didn't work. I wouldn't say I was a bad girl. I wouldn't say the man was a bad man. I would only say maybe I never took enough time to get to know him more. The courtship was a long distance courtship, so I really didn't get to know more about him. And I remember getting some warnings from people even before the wedding. And being the naive girl I was, a Christian girl who believed what you were told, I confronted him and asked him, and then he told me, it's people who are jealous. But soon after getting into the marriage, it didn't work because I couldn't stand infidelity. And so though I had moved from Mombasa to Machakos County, I then found myself back in Mombasa as a single parent. And being the ambitious girl and hardworking I was, I decided to go back to school to improve myself. So I found myself selling everything with my 2 babies. I found myself in Nandi County at the University of Eastern Africa, Brightone, to study as an adult student. There again, the hardworking girl that I am, established a business. And during summer holidays, what we used to call summer holidays, I would come to Nairobi to sell literature books and books for families under the Home Health Education Service Department of the Seventh-day Adventist Church to raise my school fees and earn enough money to support my babies in school and also my schooling and upkeep. And in 2006, I managed also to go to Botswana. Of course, I left them with a caretaker. And for 5 months, I worked there. I got some good money, which I came back and invested in a small business I had started for cereals, and also continued with my schooling. Now, 2007, a year that is known by many as a year that rocked Kenya. I was in Nandi County, just outside the University of Eastern Africa, Brightone, at what we used to call Barasi, or it's called Barasi Brightone Center, but we used to call it Barasi, as a business person, as a student staying, off-campus student, and again, of course, as an adult student with my family. And We went to vote on 27th December, I will never forget. And then the counting of the votes, things started happening. And we thought things will end up well. We were actually praying. And not only us there, but others. But on 30th December, a Sunday, I'll never forget, I met with one of the residents there. He actually told me to look up. And I looked up and he told me, do you see those clouds? I said, yes. He said, those are not just normal clouds. That's smoke. There's going to be war in Kenya. I thought he was joking. Because, I mean, why would people fight because of a presidential election anyway? I remember also previously, maybe like 2 weeks before then, I was going to buy my stock, the cereals that I was selling, because I was running a cereal shop. And a gentleman gave me a lift, another resident, and he gave me a paper, or rather I would say a pamphlet. And I looked at it and I asked, what is it? He told me, just read it. I read. It was a lot of propaganda. And then he told me there's going to be war in Kenya. I told him that we can't fight. Fight over what? And he said, if we don't win the elections, we are going to fight. Of course, he engaged me, but I was trying, I thought he was just joking. But I remember on that pamphlet, there was a note. The last line read something like this. When people are preparing for war, stop sleeping, wake up and sharpen your daggers. It was something like that. Little did I know that that would be true. Of course, I took and gave it back to him. If I knew, I would have kept it. And so, on 30th December, tension grew. People started saying things may go wrong, but I thought, well, maybe people are scared for nothing. But I remember the lady who used to help me take care of my kids, although now we were not living with her, she had become independent and she was doing her own stuff somewhere else. She came and took my daughter. And with her daughter, they went inside the campus. That was around 5:30 or so. And I remember I was coming from the campus and I met with her with the two girls. And then I asked her, where are you going? She said there's going to be war. So, we might be killed tonight. So I told her no. She said no. I will not sleep in my house. Let me go with the babies. And so she went with them into the campus. I was left with my son alone. And I didn't see the need. I thought actually they were just scared for nothing. But I remember also I met with a fellow student who was rushing inside the campus again with his papers. So I asked him, what is all this? He said, these are my documents. Even if I lose anything else, I can lose everything, but not my documents. And I thought, everyone is getting scared. And I thought there were people of little faith. I didn't know that God was giving me warnings, because actually even a few hours before I met them, I had met a pastor, actually the chaplain of the university, and he said something like this, those documents are important. I don't know why he said that. Maybe God was warning me to go and get my certificates and go and hide them or get the warning and run into the campus. But for one reason or another, I didn't. But I could see the tension was growing. And to around 6:30, it's like the center was deserted. There was no one around. The residents had gone back home after it was announced that Kibaki had taken over, or rather the results had gone were drawn into his favor. And I thought, now that they had deserted, they were disappointed and they decided to go and sleep. Yeah, that's what I thought. And so what happened is that that evening, remember my daughter had gone with this lady into the campus. They slept in some of the classrooms. It was cold, they didn't have beddings or anything, but they spent it there, and they were not alone. Quite a number of people had escaped into the campus. But that evening, also something else happened. And personally I was reading the book called Purpose Driven Life, and I tried to read, but somehow I could not concentrate. But I didn't want to look distracted because I wanted my son to concentrate. He read, he finished, and now it was time for us to go to sleep. So I requested him to, I must admit, I could feel there was something. So my natural wisdom told me that I should tell him to get out and lock our house, put a padlock. And because he was small, he would get in through the kitchen window so that in case someone came at night, they would see the padlock and think that we were not in. Now, that was human thinking. But my son told me, Mommy, these days I have grown. I cannot go through the kitchen window because there are times like when we had forgotten the keys, he would get through the kitchen window and get the keys out or something. But he told me, no, these days I've grown, I cannot get through the kitchen window. And interesting enough, I didn't push him. I told him, okay. Then after he finished reading, we went to sleep. I don't know for how long we slept because I think we slept a little bit early, around 8:30 to 9. But I would say maybe around 10:30 to 11, I was woken up by a knock on the door. And I was wondering, who could this be? Because that's when now the sleep was getting deep and there's a knock on the door. I got shocked. And I didn't answer immediately or ask who it was. Then again, there was a second knock. I got the courage. Now, there was adrenaline running through my body. And I said, oh my God, it could be true. We are being attacked. So I got the courage and asked, who is it? And a voice of a lady answered. And I could recognize the voice. It's one of the neighbors' girls, a niece to one of our neighbors. And she told me who she mentioned her name. And then I asked her, what do you want this late? And she said, my auntie has sent me to come and to pick you up. We go to sleep at our place. Then I asked her, why? And she said, those people are coming to attack you. So I asked her, are you sure that you're coming to save us or you are with them? They've told you they've told you to come and wake us up so that when we open our door, they can kill us. She said, no. She said, please hurry up. And she mentioned the name of one of the traders at the center. And she said, can't you hear? They're burning up his place. They're burning up his place. Can't you hear the crackling of the fire and the noise and all that? And then to make sure, I went to the kitchen window because from the kitchen window, you could see the main door. And I looked, I saw her. There was some moonlight. She was alone. So I was, because we didn't have electricity, I wanted to get a torch or something to, so that I could get my shoes right, to dress up and get, of course, my phone. But even before I did that, she told me, open up, open fast, open. So I opened the door, and before I could even, get to know what was happening, the auntie had jumped off the fence. She came running, and she had a torch, and she held my hand. Now, I had tried to wake up my son, and we were now in the living room, and she said, get out the way you are. Get out the way you are. They are coming, and they're coming to kill you. We can't watch you die. And so there's nothing I could pick except my sweater. The way I had just left, I just picked a sweater. My son wore his sandals, I remember, and we just walked out like that with nothing else. Being born in Meru, which is considered to be within the Gema community, Gema meaning the communities around Mount Kenya region, we were assumed that as long as you come from one of those communities, you definitely voted for President Kibaki. That was how the country was divided, to believe that, or rather people believed that if you come from that region, you definitely are supporting this presidential candidate. And in Nandi County where I was, the alignment was on the opposite political camp, the camp that was losing or the camp that lost. And therefore, there was enmity against those who were in that region, who came from any of the communities that was supposedly supporting the just elected president. And I put it in quotes supposedly because that was a generalization. It doesn't mean that if I come from this community, I definitely will have to vote for someone from my community. But that, I would say, it's a sad mindset that we've created as Kenyans, to believe that we always go or support the person from our community. And so there was that assumption, because I came from Mount Kenya region, I definitely supported the president. And actually, I came to discover I was shortlisted for those to be attacked. My name was number 2 in the center. So when this lady came and told me that they are attacking so-and-so's place, or rather they are destroying and, looting and burning up, and she said, "You are second." Actually, I came to know later that my name was second. And then she told me, "You are second. After that place, they're coming here." I didn't know why that had happened. I didn't know how she had known that. But like I said, the auntie came running and she held my hand, and there's nothing I could pick. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So it's like the story of Lot in the Bible, where the angels held their hands and walked out of Sodom. That is exactly what happened to us, and they went and put us in a small room. And I found there another lady from another community. Though she didn't come from the Gema community, she came from Western region, but there's a region in Western that was marked. I would say marked because that particular region, was seen as supporting President Kibaki. The majority of them had voted, or rather even when the votes were counted, it looked like they had supported President Kibaki. So also people from that region, that particular small constituency, were under attack. And I found this lady there with her child, and we were told that we should not speak or even cry or do anything that would attract anyone. And that particular lady who came to wake me up came with us. And we were given instructions. We were told, if anyone comes and knocks this door, don't shake, don't shout, don't scream, don't do nothing, and don't even speak, don't even answer. Let her speak in the native language. So we stayed with her so that in case anyone finds out that there are people in that room that should speak forth on our behalf and say it's only their community that was in that room. I could see through a crack a multitude of not less than 50 men with crude weapons. Remember, there was some moonlight, so I could see through the crack, and they were shouting. They were chanting war slogans. In that block, we had locals. So they started harassing them and asking them where we were, because they realized there was no one in the house. But even as they were harassing, then I started hearing a lot of commotion, and there was a lot of anger. And I remember this other lady now panicking and wanted to take a baby and run out, and we had to pin her down. She actually wanted to start crying and shouting, and we had to shut her mouth. And at that moment, I just started crying to the Lord and said, "God, please help us." Because this lady, if she shouted and screamed because she wanted to open the door and run out, definitely would have been found out, and the story would have been different. The local lady was looking again through the crack, and she told me, "Some people are running away with your things." Of course, I looked and I saw some running off. But within a few minutes, after attacking, I think around 10 minutes or so, something happened. And that's when I realized my life was never going to be the same. I saw fire. What had happened? They had looted, and what they could not carry, they had put in a heap outside and lit fire on my property. That was a long night. I remember I felt like my heart was giving way. I started feeling hollow. I felt like I was going to lose out. But I thank God for the Holy Spirit, because at that moment, I don't know where I got the strength. I don't know where this came from. But I found myself lifting up my hands and saying, Lord, what I need now is just peace, peace, peace. I said exactly that. And at that moment, the Lord gave me a song. I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. Wow. For the first time, this song had so much meaning in my life. It was so real, because at that moment, I was losing everything as I watched. Of course, not directly watching, because I could see through a crack. I could see the fire, and the fire was really cracking. You know, it was like it was mocking me. And at that moment, I realized the only property I owned was Jesus at that moment, because He's the only one that could not be destroyed. I would say that was the longest night I've ever lived. It was so long that I thought that several nights had been, shown together, because remember it was around midnight. And for the dawn to come, it's like, I don't know, it took too long. Of course, you couldn't sleep. That song started, But again, I was praying that, Lord, I hope my certificates have not been burnt. Let them burn everything else, but not my certificates. Around 5 or so, of course, at that moment, it's around 5 because the bird starts, singing and that. That's when the auntie of this lady came. It was around 5:15, 5:30 or so, around 5:30 or so. And she came and told us, now you have to leave before it is dawn completely, because if they see you here, we also will get into trouble. So now that's when I realized, oh my dear, life will never be the same. Because even though I had seen the fire, somehow I had hopes that not everything was burnt. I had hopes that the next day will pick up, It's like this thing had not sunk in me that we were actually unwanted. Remember, this is our country, Kenya. Kenya is known to be a peaceful country. We see war on television. We know this can happen in other countries around us, but not us. I mean, why all of a sudden are we becoming enemies to each other? So she told us we had to get out. So I asked her, where do we go and how? And then they told us, you cannot get out through the gate because they will know that we had hid you. So what you do, you're going to go behind the house, through a fence, through a tea plantation, and run up to the university, because the university was the other side after the tea plantation. There was a tea plantation between us and the university. Of course, a road and then the university. So she told us, you have to get your way through the tea plantation to the university. And that's what we did. When we were halfway, remember it was I, my son, and this lady with her baby. Of course, she had to carry her baby because her baby was young. At that time, my son was 13, so we started running. Remember, it's not yet fully, it's still, there's that morning darkness, the sun is not out. There was, of course, a path within the tea plantation that people would follow. So we followed that path and we started running, and when we were halfway, we saw this group of men, the guys who had been looting the whole night. You can imagine what ran into our minds. But I encouraged them and I told them, this lady and my son, let's run, let's run. And we ran and we ran. And that time I was just saying, God help us, please protect us, oh Lord, protect us, oh Lord. Then, of course, the gentlemen, I think the men were shocked to see us. They didn't run after us, but they stood and looked at us. And somehow, when we we got near the gate of the university, we felt relieved because there was security at the gate. When we got at the gate, they just asked us, where were you? Where did you spend the night? Why didn't you come at night? Of course, we didn't have much to tell them, but they allowed us in and they said, you are very lucky, you would be dead. Thank God that he has protected you. Of course, we got into the university and we went and found multitudes of people who had slept in the classrooms. Of course, in the cold, they were shivering. Because the place, Nandi County can be very cold, and especially December, it's a wet month. Fortunately, that night, it didn't rain, but the place is quite cold. So people were shivering and shaking, but I would say not so much even from the cold, but from fear, because we didn't know what would happen, or what would be next. And around 9, we asked whether we could go out and just see. Okay, fine, it looked like it was cool and nothing was happening around. So I gathered the guts to go back to see if there's anything I could salvage. And I went, and that's when I realized there's nothing much I could. But I thank God I saw something that gave me encouragement. And to me, it was God speaking to me. I saw my national identity card, my voting electoral card, that is the voting card. I saw my bank card, that is the ATM. And I saw my school ID card. They had just fallen next to the heap of ashes that was my property before the bonfire, I would say. And I don't know why, but to me that was a statement from God. And I picked them. I saw God speaking through that. The national ID, meaning that I'm truly Kenyan and no one can take my right as a Kenyan. My voting card, I got the message that I didn't make a mistake to vote. It's a democratic right that a true citizen ought to practice. My school card spoke to me, and that's how I took it, that God was saying, you will finish your education, and my ATM card, meaning that your property will be restored. And I took it literally that God was speaking to me. Then I got into my house and I realized, though they had taken everything, they had left books. So I took those books and a few more. My Bible was there and the books that I could get. And some few clothes had fallen, so I picked them. I didn't cry. That's something funny. And for me, I thought I could start, from there with nothing. Sometimes I find myself crazy. But I don't know. I'm a strong person, I would say, and I thank God for that. But I didn't find myself crying. And I want to believe that strength, I got it from the night, throughout the night, because I was praying, talking to God for strength and for peace. And of course, remember, I sang and God gave me peace. And I found myself singing. Even as I was, trying to salvage whatever I would get, I was actually singing. And I stayed around there trying to see what to get. But within 1 hour or so, one of the ladies again from that, the community came over and asked us, what are you doing here? You people, you want to die. It looks like you really want to die. So I asked her, what is wrong? I thought now that they destroyed our property, they are done with us. I mean, we can, start our lives again. And they said, listen, if you don't leave this place, you'll be murdered. Now, what shocked me is that this lady was among those who helped us the previous night. But now she talked to us with so much pain and so much anger. And I realized, hiya, it looks like this thing is serious. Now, that's when it started sinking. looking like, okay, so it's serious. We are really unwanted here. So she told us, get whatever you're getting here and get out of here right now. We don't want to see you. And I said, this is interesting. Last night, you saved us. Now, today, it looks like you really also hate us. And that's when I realized even the help that we got the previous day was not human generated. It's God who had worked through these people to save our lives. So I got whatever I could get, of course, those ID cards that I got, and a few, I think a t-shirt, a shirt or something. I remember I collected those one blanket that might have fallen out, and a few books, that my Bible and something, and then we left. When we got into the campus, by midday, things were different. Those gentlemen again had come back in their hundreds, and they were demanding that the university should surrender everyone who was inside. And what the university did was to call for reinforcement of security from Kapsabet police station, and the security people told the university that they cannot bring security to come and guard the university, but they would bring security and transport to come and pick everyone who was unwanted. And there were those who were working within the university, and so of course they are housed within the university campus. And there were those who had escaped, like some of us who had escaped, gone in for refuge. They were demanding for all of us. And so what the university did after asking for help, and the security saying we cannot bring security enough because we are overwhelmed at the Kapsabet. We have thousands and thousands of people at the Kapsabet police station. So what we can do is to bring security to come and evacuate people from the university. That is what they did. Remember now, this is that 1st of December, which was a Monday. Yes, I remember it was a Monday. And New Year was here coming, the next day. But people were confused, of course. But something happened. I and my son, we got housed in one of the university faculty. And that day, for one reason or another, I never got into the first group of people who were evacuated. But my daughter and that lady, they got into the first vehicles, and they went to the Kapsabet police station. That was on Monday. And then the next day, things were even worse. I don't know who within the university campus went and reported and said some unwanted people are still within the campus. So again, more security had to come, more vehicles were brought, so that everyone now, actually the university administrators now, those who were wanted, those the ones who were safe, had to, mobilize even the workers within the campus and everyone from the unwanted communities to ensure they left their houses, because the threat was, if the university does not surrender these people, they will come and burn the university. Now, all of us, the unwanted people, were evacuated from the university to the Kapsabet police station. And we found thousands and thousands of people in a small, maybe you can say, Kapsabet police station could be maybe an area of 6 acres of land or something. But you can imagine all the unwanted people from the local community, that region, the Kapsabet, the Brightone, with their families, some with their animals, some with their stock, because majority of people were business people. Of course, there was no room. So people were using whatever they had. Those who had sacks, that was they were using as, beddings. But we thank God. Though December, in the region, it's a wet time, God held the clouds. It didn't rain. And from that Monday, that is that fast, until Thursday evening, we stayed at the Kapsabet police station. At this time, when we went to the Kapsabet police station, of course, I reconnected with my daughter and the lady who was their nanny and her daughter. So we were staying together as a family, but of course, it's not a building. I remember my son there's that small blanket I said that I picked up and a sack. That is where he would sleep outside with other men because men were staying outside. And then there was the police station cafeteria. That's where some women would stay. Others would, actually the policemen give out their houses where the pregnant mothers and the young ones would sleep in the table room, the sitting rooms, or the living room, so to say. Every room in the police station became a boarding room, including even the reception of the offices. But of course, thousands were outside. I can't remember exactly how first, second, or third of the year 2008 was like. You know, there's that excitement of New Year. We have crossed the New Year. We know, but it was like we were zombies. You know, we were numb. We didn't know exactly what was happening. I don't know whether we were in denial or we were in a shock. Maybe I can say we were in a state of a shock because you're not bathing. You're not having much to eat. Remember, we had saved nothing. And I remember the major problem was the latrines. Oh dear, there were just a few for thousands and thousands. I can't remember visiting the loo because, of course, there was nothing much we were eating, but my body just became numb. You're not bathing, you're not sleeping, you're not eating right, you're not doing anything for days. It was a little hell on earth, but I thank God for His grace. I remember the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I think the General Conference and the division, which offices that were in Nairobi, Kenya, decided to help the university faculty because remember everyone was there. We had our professors, we had the subordinate staff, we had students from the university community. So the Adventist Church decided to help the students and the university, let me say the university community. So what they did, that was on Wednesday, which was that, they communicated with the Red Cross and the security to give this community an escort through buses that were hired by the church to take us to Eldoret Airport, where we would be flown to Nairobi. And everything went well, and they took us into buses, and we were given security, you know, in front, sideways, and behind. But just, I think, not even 4 kilometers, 3 kilometers from the police station, we found a barricade. And this gentleman said, these people are going nowhere. They again had weapons and they were burning tires everywhere, and they said they are going nowhere. Oh dear, we thought we were being evacuated from this place, but it was not going to work. And they forced the police and they said, you have to go back to the police station. I thought the police would argue and even fight for us, but you won't believe it. The police said, we can't help. You have to go back to the police station. Oh my God. At that moment, I felt like if I was given the opportunity, and I remember inside me, I said, I wish I could be given that gun. I would just blow them off. And at that moment, when I was just thinking that, the lady behind me spoke in a native language. She comes from the Kamba community, and I understand that language. And she spoke in her language, and she said, my God, I can't believe we are going back. Look at these policemen. Why can't they finish them up? I wish they could give me that gun. I would blow them off. And I said, wow, we are all murderers here. Those ones want to kill us, and we too have the potential to kill them. Then I realized we are all sinners. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, there was no other way. We had to go back to the police station. That was on that. And now we realized we were not going to get much help. But we thank God. Some people were already communicating, And the government finally discovered this was a serious issue. I think there before, the government really also didn't take it seriously. And I don't blame them. Maybe they were thinking it was just an emotional, outburst of some kind, and it was going to subside or something. But now it was getting to that, and things were not changing. Because what these gentlemen, all these, actually majority, it was young men who used to do this. They would chant around the police station, going around the police station and chanting and, slogans and saying that there would be no peace until their beloved candidate would be the president. And they would sing and say that you will not come back or you will not stay here because you are thieves and you've stolen our votes, you have stolen our property, you came here with nothing and now all of you have property, all those negative statements. And so that Thursday, we were told that the government was going to send now military because the internal police will not be able to handle this. They were going to send the military to come and evacuate us to Nairobi. And we were told to prepare the little property, whatever individuals had. We also were registered, and they got buses. And they said that we get into the buses so that by 4 a.m. we would start off. So actually by 4 a.m., I remember, that's when we got into the buses from 2 a.m. By 4 a.m., the buses started off. Remember, now we are guarded. We have a military lorry in front. We have military other vehicles beside us. We have other military lorries behind. And we started the journey again, following what we call the Nandi Hills Road. And getting a few kilometers again from the police station, we found that these guys, what they had done, that they had felled huge, long eucalyptus trees and they had blocked the roads. So there's no way we could pass. So the military said we had to turn back again and use the Kapsabet Eldoret Road, which is longer. Well, it was a long turn, but we turned and we started following that road. Getting just immediately past where we had been blocked on Wednesday, we found another huge eucalyptus tree on the road. Now, the military discovered we had to get a way through somehow. There was one businessman who had a power saw. So he volunteered, he gave out his power saw, and the military men had actually now to, to cut this tree and get it off the road and clear the road for us to go to Eldoret. We got to Eldoret and we found other hundreds of vehicles and hundreds of buses, and we started the journey. But it was not a short journey, as it were. From Kapsabet to Nairobi, it takes an average of 5 hours to 6 hours. That journey took us from 4 a.m., we got to Nairobi at 7 p.m. The reason is every other kilometer, we would find rocks, and the military had to get rocks off. We would find burnt lorries. They had to get their way, and in fact, some places it was so bad that they had to break fences into people's land and create ways for vehicles to pass, So a journey that would take 5 to 6 hours took 14 hours. That was a long journey. But I remember when we got to Nakuru, before getting to Nairobi, when we got to Nakuru, we got a culture shock. This is interesting. I didn't know that a short moment of numbness can actually change your world. Remember, we were coming from a war zone. When we got into Nakuru, we realized life was normal. People were moving around, people were talking, vehicles were, it was such a shock. People started crying. We were used to seeing on television other countries, getting into trouble and people running. We thought war would never come to Kenya. We never thought anything like this would happen to a beautiful country, Kenya. We associated these disasters with other countries around us, not us. I mean, how can you be a refugee and you are Kenyan? And I realized that sin is sincerely sinful. If the heart of man is not guarded, if the heart of man is not spirit-filled, then the devil will put his spirit in a man and you can become worse than an animal. I know God does not operate in a vacuum. And my advice to everyone is that never allow your heart to be empty. Because the moment it's empty, the devil will come and put in his spirits and you can be worse than animals. But I thank God for his grace because, like the Bible tells us, that Jesus is standing at the door, he's knocking. If anyone hears and opens his or her heart, the Lord is willing to come in and to abide with us. And so when we got to Nairobi, I remember those who belong to the Adventist faith, we were all taken to Nairobi Central Church. And my sister gave me some advice, which I think was good. And I thank God for her. She told me, don't come home. Put the rest into the vehicles to come home, because if you come home, you'll get depressed. I want to believe God gave her that wisdom. I was left in Nairobi, and she gave me an advice. She told me, do not stay idle. Stay there, and please visit your clients, because you have customers and clients. The more you talk to them, you'll start getting healing. And also, they will support you to start up, because I know you have good clients, because when you've been coming to Nairobi, you've been making good sales. And I thank God it's true. God had given me very good clients, because within a short of 3 months, term of 3 months, I would come and make big sales. I would get enough income for myself, for rent, for school fees, for myself, for my babies, and upkeep. It was not easy, but God would provide. So I had some very good clients. And so the advice was quite good, and I thank God for that. So that is what helped me to pick up. Of course, I would now remember it was January. My kids had to go back to school. We had lost everything. So which school would they go to? My sister suggested that we take them to a Christian boarding school near home, and she would assist me. And that is how we picked up. Some of the things that happened as we tried to come in terms with what had happened came from quarters that you would not expect. One of those Sabbaths, I went to one of the churches in Nairobi. I will never forget. And you're trying to, get solace. It's Sabbath, so you're going to be uplifted. You're going to be healed. And I don't know what came into this pastor. He brought a politician into church and gave him the mic on the pulpit. And the politician insulted on the altar. And he called names and talked so arrogantly about this community that had stolen votes. I say quotes because I never stole anyone's vote. And I was being classified in that community, and they were talking bad in a church on Sabbath morning. And I was just, I was dying inside. I didn't want, at that moment, you really don't want to believe what is being said on the pulpit on a Sabbath. And I couldn't believe that was an Adventist church, because as I know, the Seventh-day Adventist church is a neutral church. But it happened, and it was real. And he talked so bad. And when the pastor took over to preach, it was so political. There was nothing spiritual that morning. I was so hurt. The third Sabbath after that, I went to the same church. And I remember I saw the same pastor. He was going to preach. Do you know what I did? After the prayer, when he just said amen, I didn't sit down. I walked out through the gate, and I up the street to look for the next Adventist church near to go to church. I don't know whether it was the right thing to do, but that was the right thing to do at that moment, because I could not sit down to be hurt for another 1 hour on a holy Sabbath. I was hurting because I remember people would ask me, so how is Brightone? When are you going back to Brightone? And I would feel pain. So I started praying and asking God to assist me, to help me to get healed. So I remember this time I was coming from somewhere around that church, and I walked into the compound to get into the church and pray. And guess what? I found that same pastor with his colleague, because the church had 2 pastors. One of them was senior, the other one was associate. And so they greet me, yes, sister, so lost. Where have you been for so long? We haven't seen you. I told them I'm around. I'm still around working for the Lord. And one of them asked this question. Oh, so it's now you are back from stealing the votes. I smiled and I said, yes. And they looked at me shocked. And I asked him, Pastor, do you want to know how we did it? We went back, we sealed the tins, or rather the voting cans, whatever we call them, and we held them up like this. And we said, we did what Jesus did. We prayed. We said, Lord, just like you multiplied the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish, multiply these votes. And then we put them down and the Lord multiplied them. That's how we stole the votes. You know, they looked at me and they started laughing. I left them. I went into the church and I prayed, but I didn't pray a soft prayer. I told God, those are your servants. They're supposed to be encouraging. They're supposed to be agents of healing. Now they are hurting my wood. I will not answer them rudely. I will not insult them. I will not tell them names, but I pray that you disturb their hearts until they repent of what they've done. This is wrong and it's not right. And I started praying more seriously, and the Lord was impressing me, go back to Brightone, go back to Brightone. But I was asking the Lord, how do I go back to Brightone? I can't make myself pass Nakuru. So when I got there and I saw that people had come back to finish their studies, and everything looked like it was falling back to normal, and I was asking the Lord, where do I begin? Where do I begin? And on Monday morning, I met one of the ladies who came from this side of the country, from my group of communities. She had gone back, and she told me that the government was registering those people who had suffered loss. And she told me that particular Monday was actually the last day of registration. So she advised me to go to the local community leaders, the sub-chief, the chief, and I actually got the letters from the chief. I went to the district headquarters and I was registered in the IDP registers. And I registered that I was one of the victims and that I had lost my property. And I realized God was working, because I said, God, you kept telling me to go to Brightone. And now I come, and the first Monday I'm there, just the day after graduation is the last day of registration. If I had stayed in Nairobi, I wouldn't have been registered as an IDP. So I came back to Nairobi with a lot of morale, knowing that I'll go and finish my studies. And exactly that's what I did. I came back to Nairobi the same week, I think maybe Wednesday, Thursday. And for that 1.5 months, I worked crazy. And believe it or not, in October, I was back in Brightone, starting from scratch. Buying bed again, buying a mattress, cooking pot, plates, starting again from a small room. And that's how I went back to school. The only compensation that I've got from the government up to today is a 10,000 I got, I think, either early 2009 or late 2008. I'm not I can't remember exactly, but I got 10,000 shillings. They promised to compensate us who had businesses, were not compensated. And up to today, no more compensation. And actually, I have a letter from the chief that shows that I'm an IDP. These are letters. This is the letter that I got from the Chemundu chief's office that particular day that I said the Monday that I was told by my friend to go. This is the letter that I got from Chemundu. And the rest of the compensation we see on the news that people have been compensated, we don't know how they go through. But I remember going to one of the departments that was in charge, and I tried to talk to the officers, and they told me there was nothing for those who never went to the IDP camps. That was quite several years back. And my concern was my certificates, because I've had issues since then. Anytime I need to use my certificates, because I lost all my original certificates, apart of course from the degree that I got later, is that I have to go to NEC, National Examination Council. I pay the money and they send a copy to the institution that needs my certificates. I can never be given my original certificates, and that is now going to be my perpetual life eternally, anytime I need. And sometimes it's so hard for me because you have to cough money all the time. I remember I also lost a passport, and I remember a passport by then that could cost only 4,050 shillings, Kenyan shillings. I spent over 15,000 trying to get a passport back. And it's like we are paying for being post-election violent victims. And so it's all the time these documents are needed. You go an extra mile to pay more. It's like you're being punished for suffering the violence and being a victim. And so at times, I would say as much as I've healed, I would say those are other triggers that sometimes brings back some, you feel disappointed, but there's nothing you can do, but you feel like you are victimized for life. You are a victim for life. You want to get over it, but you can't, because every time you need these documents, you go back. Just a few months, I was applying for a scholarship with the Higher Education Loan Board. And I went and explained to the officers, and they were very helpful. What they told me, they asked me whether I could remember one of my index number, and they advised me to fill it in every space that was needed. And I'm grateful, and I would like to say thank you to HELB, because they awarded me the scholarship. But there's another positive that the post-election has done to me. I think it made me to be more sensitive to the issues of my nation. Because what has happened, every time I see an issue, I see myself as a solution or giver, as someone who can make a difference. And at times, I start even asking God, I wish I could have an opportunity even to meet the president or even have a platform where I would speak out. Something got into my mind, and I started writing a document. Now, this is very interesting, and my aim was to go and see the president and hand it over to him. This is the document that I wrote. That was before the elections. And this is what I've written down here, Kenya in the eyes of a social worker. Maybe you'd allow me to read. Tell me, Kenya, is it true hakuna matata? What about the negative ethnicity that blows full every 5 years at the democratic choosing of your leaders? Again, you see what comes first. It has to be about this politics, because this is it. Then I say, come on, listen to your comedians. Are they not making millions from stereotyping your people? Is it true that your children are comfortable with it all, or they have despaired? Is it true you can't get cleaner or more orderly? Is it true your people cannot get any more honest, sincere, and true to God, to self, and to you, their country? Whatever the case, the jump Kenya hit could be only lip deep. A lot of needs to be done. All is not well in Kenya. Kuna matata, but there is hope. Hope in the sun that rises every morning from the Indian Ocean and sets into Mount Elgon. Hope of a cleaner you. Hope of a more orderly you, and greater discipline and high-level integrity. Hope of a more united nation and greater coordination. Hope of a more feminine society. Yes, where it's not the village that I was born in or my surname that determines my destiny, nor the accumulated property that gives me a worth tag. But me, just me, being born a Kenyan, is all that I ought to have and to be a person of significance and have an equitable opportunity to be the person that God intended me to be, and actively participate in the development of you, Kenya, my beloved country. This is only possible if we approach Kenya from the real heart-searching dimensions. I want my country to be united. I want my country to be one. I want my country to grow. I want my country to be the best, because I know Kenya has what it needs to be the best. And I would say being a victim of post-election kind of like put a burden in me, that I feel that I can be an instrument of peace. I can be that agent of change. So it's 13 years down the line, yes, but remember, people are still hurting. The reason is we have never been given a room enough to get healed. The reason is the triggers are everywhere. Our political leaders never get over politics. Remember, even as you're trying to pick up, like I told you, there are so many triggers, even from the church and from friends, from families, and that sometimes you feel like a failure. But I thank God I went back to class. I thank God I got the courage to finish. And the ironical thing is this. Even on my graduation day, I graduated at the top of the graduating class with the highest GPA of 3.86. For me, that helped me to boost my esteem, to know that God is able to lift us from the broken to the beautiful vessels that He would want us to. And even now, as I speak, the Lord has enabled me, because I graduated in 2012, to go back to class. And I've just finished 2 semesters of my master's in public health, health education and promotion option at the Adventist University of Africa. And I would say that I have learned to count my blessings. Every time God does something, or every time He leads me, I am able to be grateful to Him, to share a testimony with others, and that has helped me to grow. And my message to those who are still hurting, let us learn to count our blessings, little as they may be. When we learn to count our blessings, God helps us. He lifts us from that down moment. If you wait upon Him, then it will come to pass. So brothers and sisters, yes, I know the world is not fair. We may not get compensated materially, like some of us were compensated on 10,000, we've not been compensated, but I have claimed God's promise of Joel chapter 2 verse 25, where He says that He's going to restore what the locusts have eaten. And I remember beginning of this year, the Lord speaking to me and saying, this is the year of double restoration. I'm currently growing a brand. I have registered this name. It's called the Garden of Shepherd Lifestyle, selling healthy products. I have a shop at Rongai, Kajiado County, and my dream is to have the Garden of Shepherd Lifestyle serving the whole nation and even across in the region. And I know by God's grace, this is going to be possible. So for those who are hurting, for those who have been victimized, never give up unless God gives up on you. And I have promised myself I will never give up, and I will encourage others, because God has not written me off. People may write me off, but God has not written me off. And never let Him go. He will never let me go too.